I officially welcome you all to the International Student Orientation, the Spring 2026, Part 1 Study Permit and Travel Tips. This session will only cover study permit and travel tips. For a more comprehensive understanding of your pre and post arrival journey, we encourage you to attend our other sessions in this series as well. Um, so, Next slide. Before we begin, I would like to start with some land acknowledgements. The Simon Fraser University respectfully acknowledges the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Katsi, Coquitlam, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, and Tuasin peoples on whose unceded traditional territories our three campuses reside. It is really important to acknowledge the lands we live, learn, study, and have such events on. Moving on, now let's move on to the agenda. Firstly, we will be talking about study permit and have a Q&A portion for that. Moving on, we'll talk about enrollment requirements, working in Canada, travel tips, and then admission and deferral. For each section, we'll have its own Q&A portion where you can get your questions answered. But in the end, we'll also have an additional Q&A portion for any questions that have been remaining unanswered as well. So please stay tight. So now let's start with some welcome and introductions. I would really like to introduce you to our panel. If we can move to our next slide, you can see everyone on the panel today. Firstly, we have Jitender, our international student advisor, our immigration specialist. We also have our partner Angel, regional manager, international recruitment. I myself am Muskan, our international student engagement lead, doing a co-op with International Services for Students, and so is Akshita. We both are also international students at SFU and doing co-op with ISS. We really welcome you all today. Thank you so much. So, um, so one of the most common questions that we get asked, and you might be wondering as well, is what can International Services for Students support me with? If you go see on the next slide, the International Services for Students offers various supports and services and programs. So we can help you with questions related to immigration, advising such as study permit, work permits, and visas, some of those common immigration questions. We also help students who want to ask about work eligibility requirements for international students. A lot of people also want to know about medical insurance and the Canadian healthcare system, so ISS is the place to ask. We also offer amazing transitional support and intercultural programming through the vast amount of events that we organize and offer support through. We also have different offices that help our students with study abroad, exchange, and field school. If that is something that is interesting to you, you can come to us for support. We also offer support for refugee and newcomers. Moving on to the next slide, you see if you want to access these services, you can connect with the international student advisors. If you scan this QR code, that will take you to our website. So we offer support in person at all three campuses. That is done through appointments and drop-ins. You can check that schedule on our website as well. We also offer virtual appointments, drop-ins, and live chats. So don't worry if you cannot make it in person. We have different options for you to get support. Our email is also here presented on the slide. It is intl_advising@sfu.ca. So I would recommend you all to please take a picture of this slide, save this email, and also this website link as well. Moving on, we also offer support through different ways, which includes welcome guides, a step-by-step guide for international students, and downloadable checklists for different topics. We also have instruction guides. So these are some printable handouts for various questions you might have. And you can also explore our website through topic. So if you see this QR code on the slide and then you scan this, it will take you directly to our website where you can access these resources. It will also offer you information by topic, so important information tailored for international students, organized by topic. So please save this QR code and do scan it. Obviously, another great place to know and keep in mind is the Global Student Center located in the academic quadrangle of the SFU Burnaby campus. So as you see on the screen, it's located on AQ2013. I encourage you to scan and save this QR code link to get more information on the Global Student Center, or as we call it, the GSC. The GSC is a student lounge and hub for all things global. It is a space for you, the students. So both me and Akshita, the co-op students, are also your GSC leads, and we manage the space and plan amazing events for you all with the support of the ISS team. The events in the GSC are catered towards international students, and it is a great venue to find resources, ask questions, meet new people, make friends, and I don't know, just come here, grab a treat, have your lunch, and talk to the staff that is available. This event has different events and support mostly going on whenever it is open. It is open on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, 11:30 to 3:30 p.m. That is when we offer a lot of support services, and we will talk more about it too. So please scan this QR code and learn more about the GSC and also the different events that we will be having at the space as well. Moving on to the next slide. At SFU, we also have support for graduate students. In the next slide, you will get to learn about the Faculty of Graduate Studies. Well, they are here to support you from your graduate journey. So if we have some graduate students here in the chat, it's a really wonderful place to get support. So the graduate studies essentially oversees the life cycle of a student, as it says, from admission to graduation. So their office oversees the admission process, helps process any record and enrollment related queries, and can even support you with professional development goals. Also help you with information on awards. So should you need any additional support during your time at SFU, there's also student support staff who can help you resolve any challenges you may be experiencing. They also help you with graduation information. So if you move on to the next slide, you will know how to connect with them. So to connect with the Faculty of Graduate Studies, you can reach them in person. They're located on the Burnaby campus at the Maggie Benston Center in room 1100. This is right near the ISS office as well. Well, if you cannot visit them in person, you can also access support online. So please visit their website as linked on this slide as well. So I encourage you again to please take a picture and save this link for your reference. But don't worry, if you still can't find what you're looking for, send them a ticket or an email so they can help you resolve any of your question. So to contact them, I would recommend you please scan the QR code on this slide as well. Also linked here is Hannah, the Academic Graduate Student Support Specialist. You can connect with her for any questions you might have. So moving on, there's other support as well. On the next slide, you'll see the SFU Library Research Commons. It is a great place and helps graduate students and postdoc fellows thrive by providing free services to support you in different aspects. This could be research, learning, writing. So help is available for every step of research and writing process. If that applies to you, please access this support. The Research Commons service includes space. So the Research Commons Service provide quiet, inspiring workspace for international or even graduate students, not just international, but graduate students in general, on the 7th floor of the Bennett Library, Burnaby, and the 7th floor of Harbor Center as well. Also, these spaces are amazing. They include dual monitor workstation, printing stations. You can also reserve team meeting rooms there, and the Burnaby location has day use lockers and coffee tea stations as well. So it is a great place, a mix of where you can just meet with people as well as access resources. There's also access provide access to licenses and training for a variety of research support software. So this could include training for NVivo, R, ArcGIS Pro, so different softwares that you could learn through this support services as well. Well, they not just that, they offer other support and services, which include consultation with experts, as well as English as an additional language support. So if that applies to you, please access this resource. They can also help you with thesis formatting, template help, and hands-on training workshops, which you can attend through their own website as well as book through them. They also have different events that are already planned, including writing, groups, and retreats. So if that applies to you and if that is something interesting, please scan this QR code and do access this support when you are here at SFU. Now, let's move on to the next slide. Now, this is finally the venue where I get to invite Jitender. So, Jitender, let's begin our immigration requirement portion of this session, specifically, firstly, study permit. Um, so Jitender, one of the common questions that there is what immigration documents do I need to study at SFU?
Thank you, Akshita, for starting us with the session. And I welcome you to today's session. So before I answer this question, just a quick note that everything we are sharing today is accurate as of November 14, 2025. ICC rules change pretty often, so things might look different down the road. If you have questions later, it is always a good idea to double check on the ICC website or connect with an international student advisor at SFU to make sure that you have the latest information. Now, let's start with the study permit. This is your official immigration status in Canada. Now, remember, it is not a travel document. Instead, it shows IRCC has authorized you to study here and list any documents. So list any conditions. So for example, whether you're allowed to work in Canada or not. Again, this is not a travel document. You will also need a TRV or an ETA depending on your passport. So if you look on this screen, on the right-hand side, there's an example of study permit. And on the left-hand side, you will see our example of visa. So yeah, study permit is the main document that you need to be able to study in Canada, and visa is something that you would need to travel to Canada. Muskan, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you for answering that, Jitender, and also for reminding me. Next question we have is, so I have a study permit from previous Canadian school. Do I need to apply for a new study permit?
Thank you for asking that question. So given that so many house changes have taken place in the last couple of months, as of November 8, 2024, IRCC has changed the rules, which basically means you can no longer simply change institute or designating learning institute on the same study permit at the post-secondary level. If you are moving to a different post-secondary institute, you must apply to extend your study permit, effectively getting a new study permit for the new school before you change your institute. Now, there is some exception to that rule. So for example, if you are moving from secondary, high school to post-secondary program in Canada, again, you must apply to extend your study permit to attend, for example, at SFU. However, there is an important conditional exception. If your current study permit is still valid, and if you apply for study permit extension while staying in Canada, you will be able to start your post-secondary program at SFU while IRCC process your application. Now, again, remember this exception is only for students, secondary school student who would be transitioning from secondary to post-secondary in Canada.
So thank you for answering that, Jitender. Next question is, I'm applying for my SFU study permit. Do I need a provincial attestation letter?
Yes. So most applicants now need a professional attestation letter or PAL. PAL became a part of RCC updated processes earlier last year, and you will need one if you are changing school, changing level of studies, or applying again after refusal, unless you fall under a specific RCC exemption category. Also, make sure that you remember the PAL valid dates when you include in your application. If you are yet to apply for your study permit, make sure that you upload the copy of PAL if you're not exempted, without which your application would be considered incomplete. Now, a couple of days before, RCC made an announcement regarding the PAL eligibility. So if you are a graduate student, you will not need a PAL or provisional attestation letter if you would be applying for your study permit effective January 1st, 2026. However, if you would be applying for your study permit before that, you will still need a PAL. So again, if you are a new student, you need to take certain steps to request a PAL. So for example, pay the required deposit, upload the copy of your passport, and then the PAL will be issued to you within 3 to 5 business days after you have completed those steps.
So thank you, Jitendra, for answering those commonly asked questions. So now it is time for you all to ask your questions. So please type in your questions into the Q&A. You can always upvote questions if you want. That just means that if the question is upvoted, that will be answered first. So if you see some questions that you want to get answered, please upvote those questions. And please remember the scope of the Q&A. So if your questions are outside the scope of the agenda for today, um, please try to answer those questions in the specific sessions. I do see some questions in the Q&A right now. So um, firstly, Jitendra, I see Taylor asking, I know that I get my study permit at the port of entry. Will I get my visa at the same time, or will it need to be mailed to my Canadian address?
Okay, thank you for your question, Taylor. So I understand that looks like you might have applied for your study permit from inside Canada. Is that correct? Okay, so I'll give 2 examples. So let's say if you are applying for your study permit from outside of Canada and you are from one of the visa required countries, such as India, China, etc. So when your study permit is approved, you will request to submit your passport, and you will receive your visa uh, before you're able to travel to Canada, right? And when you travel to Canada with your visa, you will present your letter of introduction to the border officer who will issue you up your study permit. In case you are already in Canada and you are transferring to SFU from another institute, you would need to apply for a study permit by following the process of extending your study permit. So if you are applying from inside Canada, you would get your study permit and you would need to apply for your TRV or visa separately. So from inside Canada, it's a two application, your study permit and visa separately. If you are applying from outside of Canada, you will get your visa once your study permit is approved. I hope that is clear.
Yeah, thank you for answering that question, Jitendra. So, Taylor, if you have any questions, you can ask again, or you also have time in the end. I do see some questions about transferring from FIC or valid study permit for other post secondary. I feel these questions will be covered in our session um, in forward. So, if people have questions about study permit specifically, we can answer those first. Um, there's one about uh, traveling. So there's a question by Marcella. Uh, some people told me that as soon as I get in the airport, I get to the paperwork or visa done in the airport directly. Do you know what kind of papers will I need and how much time it could take?
So we would be addressing that question during travel, but if you have applied for your study permit from outside of Canada, once your study permit is approved, you will receive letter of introduction from the IRCC. So when you travel to Canada, you will need to present that document to the border officer. They may also ask for some additional documentation like your proof of funds or your medical examination. So when you present these documents to the border officer, they will issue your study permit at the port of entry or at the airport.
Okay. There's also another question by Ernika. Can we start our studies in SFU when we have a valid study permit from another post-secondary institution and our SFU study permit is in process?
So it depends. So for example, if you are transferring to SFU from another post-secondary institute, you would need to have your SFU study permit approved before you can start your program at SFU. However, if you are transferring to SFU from a secondary school, so in that case, you can start your program at SFU if you have applied to extend your study permit when your current study permit is in progress. So that depends if you're transferring from secondary to SFU or if you are transferring from another post-secondary to SFU.
Okay, thank you, Jitendra. I feel those were the questions for the study permit. So maybe,
Okay, so I think somebody mentioned, so if your
yeah,
study permit is from Langara College, so in that case, you would need to wait until your study permit for SFU is approved, which basically means your new study permit should reflect SFU as your designating learning institute.
thank you, Jitendra.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so we can move to next section.
yes. So now we'll move on to
Oh,
our
sorry.
that's fine. So another question is, do study permit holders have to study full-time every term?
So that is a very good question, Ms. Khan. I think a lot of students have this question. So as a study permit holder, there are a few rules from RCC that you are expected to follow. So for example, staying enrolled at a designating learning institute or SFU and actively working towards finishing your program. So basically taking your classes and making study progress each term. Now, whether you need to enroll full-time or part-time, that depends if you want to apply for your post-graduation work permit at the end of your program. So if applying for post-graduation work permit at the end of your program is your goal, then you should be enrolled full-time. In addition to that, RCC also expects you to keep studying during each academic term unless you are on approved break or to follow any specific condition listed on your study permit, like work restriction or full-time enrollment requirement. If any point of time you stop meeting those conditions, then RCC expect that you take a step back and on track either change your status or leave Canada.
Thank you for answering that, Jitinder. Next question is, can I work in Canada while I'm studying?
So yes, the answer is yes. Eligible students can work on and off campus uh, uh, during their program at SFU. To be able to work on campus, you need to meet certain conditions. So you must have a valid study permit. You must have condition printed on your study permit that allows you to work on and off campus. You must be enrolled full time in the term you plan to work, and you must have a social insurance number or SIN. Some of the examples of on-campus work are listed on the slide. So for example, SFU, if you're working for any faculty member, if you're working for yourself, self-employment, student organization, private business, or any private business that provide on-campus services to the school. Similar to on campus, you still need to meet certain condition to be able to work off campus. A similar condition, you must have a study permit with work condition. You must enroll full time in the term you want to work, and you are pursuing a SFU degree, diploma, or certificate that is at least 6 months or longer, and you must have a social insurance number. So as of November 8, 2024, eligible students may work up to 24 hours per week during academic session, and you can work full time during scheduled breaks. So for example, at SFU, for undergrad students, summer is considered a scheduled break. For graduate student, they can work full time during reading break, winter holidays, etc. Now, a lot of students sometimes ask these questions: Can I work 20 hours a week, and can I compensate by working 28 hours another week? So the rule of average does not apply here. So the maximum you can work per week is 24 hours. If you are not able to work 24 hours in week, the number of hours don't carry forward. Again, make sure that you check your study permit for the any work condition on your study permit. So it could be may accept employment on and off campus. And again, remember to apply for SIN before starting work. In addition to on and off campus work, if your program requires co-op, internship, practicum, or similar placement as part of your academic program, you will need a co-op work permit in addition to your study permit. SFU will provide the document that you need to apply for your co-op work permit. So again, co-op work permit only covers work that is required to complete the program. Student cannot use it for any other part-time works.
Thank you for answering that, Jitinder. Our next question is, can I stay in Canada and work after I finish my studies at SFU?
So yes, the good news is yes, you can stay in Canada after you complete your work. So many graduates apply for post-graduation work permit after complete an eligible program. The post-graduation work permit or PGWP lets you work in Canada as an important route to build Canadian work experience. Now, there are some criteria that you need to meet in order to apply for post-graduation work permit. Your program must be at least 8 months long, and you must have studied full-time in all the required terms, with some RCC exception. So for example, for undergrad students, spring and fall are considered academic terms, whereas for graduate students, spring, summer, and fall are considered academic terms. So as I mentioned, there are some exception to full-time studies. In your final term, you could be part-time, and you could also take an authorized leave in case sometime life happens and you might need to take some time away from your program. So these are the only exception, your final term of studies or an authorized leave from your program. In addition to these requirements, as of November 1, 2024, you're also required to submit proof of English or French language proficiency unless you are exempt. So make sure to check the exact test type and scores IRCC accept. So for example, when you apply for admission to university, normally you would take academic version of test, right? But for post-graduation work permit, you would need to take general version of test. So IELTS is one of the tests that is accepted for PGWP.
Thank you for answering that, Jitendra. Now we'll be moving to the Q&A portion. So if you have any questions about immigration requirements, so anything regarding enrollment and working in Canada, please ask those questions now. So if you have any questions specifically for enrollment and working in Canada, please ask them now. Okay, I see this question. How many units or credits it's considered full-time at SFU?
Again, that will depend for undergrad and graduate students. So for example, if you are an undergrad student, you need minimum of 9 units to be considered a full-time. In addition to that, if you are pursuing a full-time co-op, you would be considered full-time. For graduate students, the requirements are different. To be considered a full-time as a graduate student, you need to be enrolled in 6 or more units. Or if you are again pursuing a full-time co-op, you would be considered full-time. Uh, So we have a page that lists down in detail who would be considered full-time as an undergrad or graduate student. Akshita, are you able to share that link with the students?
Thank you for answering that, Jitendra. Akshita will later share that link as well. Let's see if we have any other questions. So Marcella is asking, how's the process for getting the SIN as soon as I arrive?
So to apply for a SIN number, you need to have your study permit, a copy of your study permit. So if you have applied for your study permit from outside of Canada, you will receive your study permit when you enter Canada. So once you have your study permit, you can apply for SIN number. There are different ways you can apply for SIN number. You can apply online. Service Canada is the organization which is responsible for issuing SIN number in Canada. So you can apply online, you can visit their office, or we also host or arrange SIN workshop at SFU campuses. You can simply visit the SIN workshop at SFU and you would be able to apply for SIN number at the university itself. But if that doesn't work for you, you can also visit Service Canada office. You would also need to carry a copy of your passport along with your study permit to apply for SIN number.
Thank you for answering that. Our next question is, my MBA program has a co-op work requirement. Do I need to apply for the work permit separately when or after I am applying for the study permit?
So if your program has a mandatory co-op, you can apply for a co-op when you're applying for your study permit. So yes, you can apply for them together when you're just applying for your study permit. In case your program does not have a mandatory co-op, and if you decide to do co-op later on, then you would be able to apply for co-op work permit once you have started your program at SFU.
Okay, so that also answers another question, which was when should I apply for a co-op work permit? So as you said, Jitendra, whenever they start studying at SFU, right?
Yes, if the co-op is not mandatory part of your program and you decide that you would like to participate in co-op and you have been accepted into the co-op program, at that point of time, you can apply for your co-op work permit.
Yeah. Thank you so much for answering that question. Another one we have is, what is the maximum hours you can work on campus per week?
So if you are eligible to work on campus, so remember the condition that you need to be able to work on campus. You must have a study permit with work conditions. You should be enrolled full time and you should have a valid SIN number. So if you are eligible to work on campus, there is no limit on the number of hours you can work. But obviously that also means that you need to prioritize your studies, right? Because in case you spend too many hours of working, that could impact your studies. So always balance the number of hours you want to work along with your studies, but there is no limit on the number of hours you can work on campus.
Yes, thank you for answering that question, Jitendra. Maybe we can move on to the next section. So that also covers a lot of the questions that the students are answering at this moment.
Yes.
So our next question is, what documents do I need to carry when I travel to Canada?
So once your study permit is approved, and once you have your valid visa or ETA, depending upon the country from where you would be traveling, you are expected to carry following documents: a valid passport along with immigration documents. So, for example, your visa or electronic travel authorization, again, depending upon your country of nationality, study permit or study permit approval letter. So if you have applied for your study permit for the first time from outside of Canada, you will receive letter of authorization or study permit approval. Apart from that, you should also carry proof of your study at SFU. So, for example, your offer letter or letter of acceptance from SFU, in case you are enrolled by the time you are traveling, you can also carry your enrollment letter. In addition to above documents, the officer might also ask you to provide proof of funds. So carry proof of funds that you used when you applied for your study permit. and immigration medical exam. Now, for immigration medical exam, your exam should be valid. So for example, if you when you applied for your study permit and it has been by the time your study permit is approved, in case your medical exam is already expired, in that case you would need to undergo a new medical examination and make sure that you only travel with medical exam if required from your country.
Thank you so much for answering that, Jitendra. So next, once my study permit is approved, how soon can I travel to Canada, Jitendra?
So there is not any hard arrival window, but IRCC guidance suggests arriving a reasonable amount of time before your classes start. So many schools and advisors recommend arriving no more than 4 weeks before the start of your classes. So that gives you enough time to settle in Canada. Also remember that you cannot start working until your program start date and you must meet work eligibility. That does not mean that you cannot travel early. So for example, if you want to travel early, you should be able to explain to border officer your need for traveling to Canada earlier. Sometimes people travel with their families. In that case, they might need longer time to establish or settle in Canada. So that could be a genuine or valid reason for traveling earlier. So again, if you're traveling earlier, then suggested amount of time, make sure you're able to suggest or you're able to provide an explanation to the visa officer. Now, in case you're already in Canada and you have applied for your study permit extension and you are waiting for a decision on your application, make sure you have visa to be able to enter Canada. So the requirement would be different if somebody who applied for study permit extension and is still waiting for decision on their application.
Thank you for answering that. So if any of you have questions about travel tips, please ask them now. I see a question here, Jatinder. If I am at FIC and I am in the process of waiting for my study permit, would it be wise to travel home over the holiday?
So I'm assuming that you are transferring to SFU from FIC, and if you've applied for your new study permit, so yes, you can travel while you're waiting for a decision on your study permit. But when you come back, make sure that you have valid visa or an ETA to be able to come back to Canada. So as I mentioned earlier, that your study permit is not a travel document, right? So you will still need a visa or ETA to enter Canada. So make sure you have your valid visa and ETA, otherwise you won't be able to come back to Canada. Again, if your study permit application is still under processing, when you come back to Canada, you would be admitted to Canada as a visitor. Because to be able to start your program at SFU, you need a valid or approved study permit with SFU as your designating learning institute.
Thank you for answering that. Next question we have is, how do I know if I need an immigration medical exam?
So when you apply for your study permit, it will provide the checklist of documents that you need to provide or upload as a part of your application. So if your country requires a medical examination, if you're not uploaded, then your application would be considered incomplete. So if you included medical exam as a part of your application, that basically meant medical exam was required for your application. You can also check so when you submit your application, it will ask in the checklist of your documents. You can also go to the IRCC website and see if medical exam is required for your country of nationality. So for example, USA, if you are a US citizen, then medical exam is not required.
Okay, thank you for answering that. We have another question. When is our study permit required? Do we need to have it before the start day of classes or before registering to the courses?
So you need a valid study permit before you can start your program at SFU. So for example, let's say if January 7 is the date when the spring semester start then you need a valid study permit before you can start your program. You can always register for your courses. Registration of courses does not require a valid study permit, but you won't be able to start your classes if you don't have a valid study permit. So in case you already registered for classes, but you don't have a valid study permit, make sure to drop your courses before the deadline so that you can get refund. Or just connect with an international student advisor and we would be happy to assist you at that time.
We have another question. What can I generally expect when I talk to the border officer upon arrival? I'm mostly wondering what the process would look like. For reference, I'm coming from the US, if that affects the answer.
So again, the experience for students could be different. Sometimes they might just ask your the visa document that you need to enter Canada, right? So, for example, if you are traveling to Canada as a student, you need a study permit approval letter to be able to come to Canada to start your program. Sometimes they might want to see that you have enough proof of funds to support yourself by paying your tuition fee and your living expenses. Sometimes they might want to check that you're coming to Canada on temporary basis and that you might go back at the end of your program. But sometimes they might not ask you any questions. So the experience would be different from person to person. There is no standard process, but these are some of the things that need to be kept in mind when you're traveling to Canada.
Okay. Thank you so much for answering those questions. We can now move on to our next topic. Um,
Okay, thank you everyone for your question. In case you have more question, I think Akshita shared with you how to contact with an ISA. So please feel free to email us, drop in, or connect virtually if you have more question, and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you very much.
so I also saw a lot of questions about admission and deferral processes in the chat and the Q&A as well. So I would now like to invite Angel, the regional manager international recruitment, to answer those. Thank you, Angel.
All right.
Um,
Thank you, Muskan. So,
yeah.
yes, thank you, Muskan. I hope you're all finding the information shared in this session helpful so far. We really look forward to seeing you on campus in the January term. So I am here today to provide some key updates on your admission offer and the admission deferral process should you require it. Next slide, please. So the main question I want to address today, and this is a frequently asked question, is what are my options in the event that I am not able to start my studies in January? For example, what if my study permit is not approved in time? So here I want to provide information regarding SFU's admission deferral process for undergraduate students. Generally speaking, we do have a flexible admission deferral process, but there are steps that you must follow, and admission deferral is not guaranteed. Now, what does admission deferral actually mean? Admission deferral essentially means that you have a valid SFU admission offer for the January 2026 term, but due to extenuating circumstances, you're not able to start your studies and you need to start your studies at a later term. You may need to request for deferral, for example, if you're facing personal unforeseen situations. For example, there's a sudden illness. Those participating in mandatory military service, we've granted deferrals in the past. And also for those who may have received a study permit rejection from IRCC, we can also consider an admission deferral. So to be considered for admission deferral, you must submit a formal request. It is not an automatic process. The deferral application period for the January term is from October 15 to December 15th. I do have an upcoming slide where I will share more about how to submit the request. Now, some students joining us today may still be waiting for their study permit to be issued. And If your study permit approval is delayed, you may also need to request for a deferral. In this case, our request is actually for you to continue to wait to see if you can get your study permit in time for your studies in January. Right now, we are in mid-November, so there's still time for your study permit to be approved in time for the early next year. For those that are maybe facing study permit delays, we have a separate deferral application period. For permit delays, the deferral period is from December 10th, and will start on December 10th, and the deadline to apply for deferral is January 5th. January 5th of 2026 is also the first day of classes for the spring term. To be considered for deferral, you must formally accept your admission offer in the student center and pay the admission deposit. We will not grant deferrals for students who are not meeting the conditions of their conditional admission offer. We will also not grant deferrals for students who wish to study at another post-secondary institution while they wait for their SFU study permit. And I am aware I'm sharing a lot of information very quickly today, but you can see on the slide here that there is a QR code. It will bring you to our admission deferral website that summarizes all of the information I'm sharing today. Next slide, please. Okay, so on this slide, we have more information on how to submit an admission deferral request. First, accept your offer and pay the admission deposit. Log into the Student Center in applicant.sfu.ca to do this. Next, prepare supporting documentation for the deferral request. Examples of supporting documentation can be things like a study permit rejection letter, medical records, a letter confirming your mandatory military service, etc. Email your requests to international_recruitment@sfu.ca, the email that you see on the slide. You'll need to include your supporting documentation, your reason for deferral, and indicate for us which term you wish to start your studies. At SFU, you can actually start your studies in the January term, May term, or the September term. It is possible to defer your admission for a maximum of 1 year. So for those that have a January offer, the maximum deferral that we can grant is all the way up until January of 2027. Next, be sure to review your to-do list in your student center, again in applicant.sfu.ca, just to make sure that your admission offer is confirmed and we have all of your final transcripts, your exam results, whatever is required to meet the conditions of your admission offer. And for those of you who may have applied to live on campus housing, you are responsible to notify the housing office of your admission deferral by emailing housing@sfu.ca. Next slide, please. Okay, so here we have some important considerations. If there's possibility, you may need to defer your admission. First of all, if you're a recipient of an entrance scholarship, award, or bursary from SFU, you will need to connect with our financial aid and awards office directly to determine if the award can also be deferred. Next, don't forget about course enrollment. If there's any possibility you may start your studies in January, you should still enroll in your courses. We are actually currently in the course enrollment period right now. Popular courses at SFU can fill up quickly, so you do want to enroll in courses and reserve your spot in the courses that you wish to take. Of course, if once your deferral is confirmed, then you must remember to drop all of your courses in the enrollment system before the start of term, or you may be charged penalties. On my next slide, I will share some key dates on when you must drop your courses by. Classes for the January term will officially start on January 5th. You can start your program late, but we really do not recommend starting beyond week 2. SFU offers limited online courses. Most of our programs are really designed to be in person. So if you're unable to be in Canada in person at SFU for January, then you really should apply for admission deferral. And another reminder is, if you're planning to arrive late, it is your responsibility to notify your professors, instructors, and to catch up on any missed coursework. Finally, starting late may have implications on your postgraduate work permit eligibility. For this, I recommend for you to connect with Jatinder and the International Student Advising Team to discuss your personal circumstances. All right, next slide, please. Okay, this is my last slide. And this slide here shows you some of the key tuition refund dates for the January term. As I mentioned, classes will officially start on January 5th. You can continue to add or drop classes in the course enrollment system all the way until January 11th. And if you drop courses, you will receive 100% refund for the drop courses. If you drop courses by January 11th, there is no note on your academic record. Now, if you are unable to attend SFU for the January term and need to drop all of your courses, January 18th is the last day to do so without a withdrawal notation indicated in your academic record. Between January 12th to the 18th, you will receive a 75% tuition refund for drop courses. And if you drop a course between January 19th to the 25th, you will receive a 50% refund. And there are no refunds for drop courses after January 26th. Oh, I'm seeing something on the screen. I think our shared screen, we're seeing something else right now. Thank you. Okay, so again, that comes to the end of the information regarding admission deferral. Please connect with the international recruitment team if you have any questions on the information I've shared today. I'll put in the chat my department's email. It's very simple, international_recruitment@sfu.ca. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Angel. Thank you so much. We can maybe move on to the next slide and then open the floor up for any questions you might have for Angel. So this time you can ask about admissions and deferral processes as Angel discussed. One of these I see is maybe Angel, you can answer this is where or how do I obtain the confirmation of enrollment? Is this the direct repository received or another document? Can you answer this one?
So yes, I will share a link for you to the student, or actually I'll put it in the chat box shortly after I speak. But it's a self-service process, so you can download your account summary on your own. But I will also share with you how to get a confirmation of enrollment letter. It's through a web link.
Okay, sure. So thank you. You'll put it in the chat. So if you've asked a question or for anyone for reference, you can access that web link. We also have another question whenever you feel ready, Angel. So this person asked, is there a limit to the number of times we can defer our program? Is it possible to, for example, do it 3 times each time for 1 semester?
Sorry, just sharing the confirmation of enrollment link in the chat box. Muskan, do you mind repeating the question for me?
Yeah. Sorry about that, Angel. But yeah. So the question is there also a limit to the number of times we can defer our program? Is it possible to, for example, do it 3 times each time for 1 semester?
I think for all the students who may need to apply for admission deferral, do think about what's happening with your personal situation, have your discussions with our ISS advisors to determine how long you want to defer for, right? Whether it's 1 term, 2 terms, or 3 terms. Technically, we will only grant deferral for one term, but we do know right now we're in a situation where there may be, study permit delays and or rejections, and you're reapplying. So we do try to be flexible. Just make sure to connect with us. If keep us up to date on your situation. If we've granted deferral and you may need to apply for a second deferral, let us know as soon as possible so that we can review your request. So simply put, we will be flexible and we will consider your request.
Thank you so much for answering that, Angel. If do we have any more questions about admission and deferral processes? I see none for now, so maybe we can move on to the next slide and go on to our additional Q&A session. So this is here, maybe we can answer the questions that are in the chat already. So one of these is, I am currently transferring from FIC, the Fraser International College, to SFU, and I applied for my study permit extension as instructed, but the wait time is around 5 months and the semester starts in January. Can I still study at SFU on applied status? So if any one of you can answer this.
So I can perhaps answer that. So
Mhm.
in case, because this is a situation where are you transferring to SFU from another post-secondary institute? So in that case, you need to have an approved study permit with SFU as your designating learning institute before you can start your program at SFU. So in case you don't have your study permit in time to start your program for spring, please connect with your FIC advisor to learn about the other option that could be available to you.
Thank you for answering that. So one of the other questions that there is in your experience, how much time could it take to the study permit to be accepted or rejected by the IRCC? I guess, Jitendra, that would be one of your
So
questions.
the Yeah. So the processing time will be different depending upon the country from where you're applying. So for example, if you're applying from inside Canada, so as somebody mentioned, the processing time is 162 days, so slightly longer than 5 months. But if you're applying from outside of Canada, the processing time would vary depending upon your country of nationality. So you can always check the processing time on the RCC website. Akshita, are you able to share that link with the students? So if you just Google IRCC processing time, so that will take you to the link where you would be able to find out the processing time in your home country.
Thank you for answering that, Jitendra. And I'm hoping that Akshita will share the link in the chat for everyone as well. I don't see any more questions, but please, if you all have any questions, this is the time to ask those. So please write those questions in the chat. We'll wait for a few moments to see if any last minute questions arise. I see that Akshata has also pasted the link in the chat. Thank you so much, Akshata. So for those who were asking about processing times, you can access that there. For now, I don't see any open questions. So if you're typing your questions, please do so now, because then we will close the floor for the questions. Okay, seeing no questions, maybe we can wrap up the session then. Oh, okay. That's a general question I see. That's not related to our session scope right now. So maybe you can attend one of our upcoming sessions where this question can be answered. But in general, the weather in January is pretty cold. That's what I can say. Could be subjective, but it is pretty cold. Thank you for all those questions. Maybe we can move on to the next slide to just wrap up and end early. So on the next slide, if, oops, yeah.
So there's one more question, Muskan, I believe somebody
Oh,
mentioned.
okay. Yeah. Okay. So the question here is, how long does it usually take for IRCC to review medical exam results? Jitendra, do you have? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So if you look at the processing time link that Akshita just shared with you, it will list down the complete processing time for any immigration application that you submitted for to Canada. So, for example, if you submitted your study permit application, let's say, for example, let's say if you submitted from Bangladesh, then the processing time is 4 weeks. So the processing time will start when you submit a complete medical examination, complete application that include providing your biometrics, providing your medical exam. So once you submit complete application, IRCC would generally take the processing time mentioned on their website to review the complete application. That would include also reviewing your medical exam. Now remember that the processing time that is mentioned on the RCC website is average processing time, which basically means 90% of applications are expected to be reviewed or made a decision within those times, but remaining application can take longer for RCC to be make a decision. And apart from that, processing times can keep on changing and it can change at any point of time. So always remember to review the current processing time on the RCC website. Hope that helps.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful, Jitendra. Um, So we still have some time if you have questions, but if not, I would like to wrap up this session. Uh, we would love to hear what you think. So please tell us, give us some feedback about how this session was. We really, really want your feedback, so do so. Please scan the QR code on this slide, so you can choose to enter a draw to win one of the three $50 SFU bookstore gift cards. So if you answer this and get selected, you'll win a prize. So please take a moment to scan this QR code and give us feedback. Please tell us how we did so that we can improve and keep doing great things for you. Thank you so much for everybody to join today. I hope this session was helpful. And if you haven't already, please do give us feedback for today. Maybe we can move to the next slide portion, but if you want, please scan this QR code. We
So you want
also
me to go back? Yeah, if you're not scanned the QR code, please do so and provide your feedback as Mushkan mentioned. And yeah, thank you very much for attending today's session. We would love to hear your feedback. That will help us to improve.
Yeah, and on the next slide, we have our upcoming sessions listed as well. So if you haven't already, please also register for these pre and post arrival sessions. These will cover more comprehensive topics and can answer your questions better. This is the QR code linked here for you to access and register for these sessions as well in our Spring 2026 orientation series. But thank you everybody for joining. It was lovely seeing you all virtually.